Hey guys, so today we're going to learn how to do a different factoring method. So we've learned so far finding a GCF. We learned factoring a trinomial using that like little puzzle, the X puzzle, and then now we're going to do something called the slip and slide method. So I've outlined like all the steps here for you on this slide, so you could stop and maybe take a picture or write down all of these steps, but obviously these steps aren't going to make a lot of sense until you see an example. So we're just going to get straight to it. I am going to warn you that this is not a super easy section, and it's going to take you a minute to kind of see the pattern and see the steps. So please be patient, okay? If you don't understand it after the first, second, third example, that's totally normal. Just take your time. This is also a section where you're not going to want to rely on the TMath videos to help you because they do it a completely different way, and I think that method is actually very confusing. So this technique is going to be the easiest for you, even though it's still kind of difficult in itself. It's the easiest of our options. So here we go. Okay, so the first thing I would like you to notice is that all these examples that we're looking at today are going to have a number in the front. And that number in the front is called an A value. So if this A value is a number that's bigger than 1, that we have to use this slip and slide technique to factor this down, okay? Basically, this number in the front causes major issues as far as factoring goes, and so there's more to the process. Here's the step, okay? So step 1 is where you do the slip part of slip and slide. So you're going to take the number in the front and you're going to slip the number in the front to the end, and you're going to multiply by whatever's at the end. So that number in the front is going to move, leaving me with just x squared. 5x will stay right the same as it was. And I'm going to take the number in the front and I'm going to multiply by the last number. So that's going to make it 2 times 3, which is 6. Okay, what you've done is you've created a trinomial that we learned how to factor in the last section. So now you're going to factor this, we call these basic trinomials. So you're going to factor this basic trinomial using the skills we learned in the previous lesson. So remember, it's what times what equals the third number that adds up to the middle number. So what times what equals 6 that adds up to 5? 3 times 2, right? 3 times 2 is 6, and 3 plus 2 is 5. So we're going to write down what that would look like. Okay, we're going to do all that work and get the answer. Okay, I believe that is step 2 in the slip and slide method. Okay, now you're not done, because we did something at the beginning that changed the way the problem looked. So we kind of like moved the 2 to the front at the beginning. Well, now we kind of have to undo all of that. So the third step is to divide, and I'll read it to you, divide both your factors by the value you slipped over in step 1. So the factors are the 3 and the 2, and you're going to divide by the number that you slipped over in the first step, and that was a 2. So we're going to divide both of our factors by 2. Okay, not the x's, just the numbers. Okay, that's step 3. And then step 4 says reduce fractions or slide any denominators up to the next variable. Okay, so the last thing we would do is we would actually try to figure out what this division step would look like. Does 3 divide by 2? No, it does not. So I'm going to take this number, since it doesn't divide, and I'm going to slide it to the front. Slip and slide, right? So we do the slip at the beginning, and we're doing the slide now. What about this one? Does 2 divide by 2? That one does. So 2 divided by 2, you're going to actually just do the math since it comes out even, and you're going to bring that straight down. So there won't be any sliding happening here because 2 does divide by 2 evenly. And that's it. That's your answer. Okay, that's the slip and slide. So we're obviously going to do several more examples. Again, remember, this is not easy. Hang in there, okay? Give me a minute. If one example isn't enough, that's totally normal, okay? So let's try another. Here we go. Okay, so again, we have to do the slip and slide method because there's a number in the front, we call that A, that is bigger than 1. Okay, that's when slip and slide is necessary. So we have that here. So we're going to start with the slip part of slip and slide. So that is taking the number on the outside and multiplying it by the third number. And we're going to actually rewrite what this would look like with that 5 out of the way. So I'm multiplying 5 and the 6 and making that would be 30. Okay, that's step 1. Step 2 is factor this basic trinomial. So we're going to go over here and we're going to say what times what equals 30 that adds up to negative 17. What times what equals 30? 2 and 15. That might work. 2 and 15 multiply to 30. But 2 plus 15 is positive 17. Do you remember how to make this work? If I want to multiply and get a positive, but add and get a negative, you would make them both negative. That came up in our warm-up that you should have done before this video. Okay, so we have minus 2 and minus 15. So we've got step 2 done. Step 1 is slip to the end and multiply. Step 2 is factor. Step 3 is divide, and you're dividing by this number that you slipped over in the beginning, which is 5. Okay. And then step 4 is you're going to slide anything that doesn't divide. So like this 5 doesn't divide, so we will slide it to the front. But what about over here? 15 divided by 5, doesn't that divide? That does. That equals 3. So there won't be any slide happening here because you can divide and get a nice even number. There's your answer. Hopefully that example was a little bit easier than the first one. We're going to keep going. Okay, so slip and slide method again. So we have to use it. Remember, you have to use slip and slide when you have a number at the beginning that's bigger than 1. Okay, so this number is bigger than 1, so we have to do slip and slide. So let's go to the first step, slip. So slip means slip the beginning number to the end and multiply. So 6 times 2 is 12. The next step is factor your basic trinomial. So what times what equals 12? That adds up to 7. I think 3 times 4, right? 3 times 4 is 12 and 3 plus 4 is 7. So we're going to write what that would look like. And remember, I'm using plus signs here because it's a positive 3 and a positive 4. Step 3 is divide by that number that you slipped at the beginning. So divide by 6, divide by 6. Okay, this last step, this one's actually going to have a little bit of a twist to it, okay? So I'm going to go back real quick and read the directions again to you. In step 4, it says reduce fractions and then slide any denominators to the next variable. We didn't have that yet. We haven't had to reduce any fractions because they weren't reducible or they divided evenly. So we have something different in this question because 3 over 6 or 3 divided by 6, that fraction can reduce. 3 over 6 reduces to 1/2. Okay, now do I expect you to know that in your head? No, I mean, would I really love it if you did? Yeah. But if you aren't comfortable with that mental math, please don't sweat it. You do have calculators and things you can use to reduce fractions for you. Okay, so don't freak out if you're like, oh my God, that doesn't make sense. Just use your calculator, okay? 4 over 6 also reduces because you can divide both numbers by 2. Just like you could, or that wasn't 2, that was 3. You can divide both numbers by 2. So you could reduce that to 2/3. Okay, so I guess this problem kind of has an extra step because you have to reduce the fractions before you can do the slide. And the slide is always your last step. So we're going to slide the 2 over and we're going to slide the 3 over. And now we should be able to have an answer. So the 2 is going over and then the 3. And now we're done. Okay. I promise it doesn't get harder than that. Like that's the most complicated type of slip and slide problem you're going to see. All right, we got 2 more, I think. So again, if I have a number in the front that's bigger than 1, I need to do slip and slide. So slip the 3 to the end. And we're going to be super careful because we do have negatives. So 3 times -10 would be -30. I think I'm also going to put a 1 in here in the middle so I don't get confused about like what that is. Okay, factor. So I want to know what times what equals -30 that adds up to -1. Okay, 30, 30. 3 and 10, 5 and 6, 2 and 15. Those are our things that multiply to 30. But if I want -30, then one of these numbers is going to have to be negative. I'm going to use 5 and 6 first because -5 plus 6 is +1. Do you remember what you do if you get the right number but it's not the right sign? You switch the signs. So put the minus with the 6. 5 plus -6 is -1. So now we have a winning combination. We want +5 and we want -6. Okay, what's next? Divide. Okay, you're going to divide by the outside number that you slipped over, and that was a 3. And then your job from here is to either divide the numbers if they divide evenly, reduce the fractions if they reduce, and if those 2 things don't happen, slide. Okay, so 5 over 3, does that reduce? No, it does not. So we're going to go ahead and slide this guy over. What about 6 divided by 3? Does that divide or reduce? It divides. What is 6 divided by 3? That is 2. So that you would not be sliding because it divides evenly. Okay, one more. So we got a number in front that's bigger than 1. Slip it to the end and multiply. Okay, factor. So what times what equals 4? That adds up to 5. 4 and 1 is what comes to mind right now because 4 plus 1 is 5. Okay, divide by the outside number that you slipped over, which was a 2. And then either divide the numbers, reduce the fractions. Whoopsie, didn't mean to do that. And then slide. So the first one, 4 does divide by 2. 4 divided by 2 is 2. So that one doesn't have a sliding step because you can divide it evenly. Over here, 1/2 does not reduce. So I'm just going to go straight to the sliding part. And we are done. Okay. Give those a try. If you're really, really struggling after watching this video, please reach out to me and I will, I'll meet with you or discuss with you some other tricks that you can use or walk you through some more steps. Okay, you can do this. Good luck, guys.